So my fiance, 25-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old female, are getting married in 5 days. For context, we are having a do-it-yourself wedding with about 80 guests who are coming to our backyard. I'm 6 months pregnant. We don't have a wedding party, although my fiance asked his brother to be his unofficial best man, but it's just a sentiment and doesn't come with any real role. We decided early on that we weren't interested in having bachelor or bachelorette parties because we don't really believe in the significance behind them of celebrating your freedom. We told the unofficial best man and maid of honor that we weren't interested and not to worry about it. Last night, my fiance's mom said something about one of my fiance's friends, let's call him Tom, planning something for Thursday. We're getting married on Saturday and have a rehearsal dinner on Friday. Tom is not the best man, and no conversation about him being a best man has ever occurred. My fiance texted Tom saying he heard something about a plan for Thursday and wanted to know what was up. Immediately, Tom FaceTimed us and sheepishly admitted he was planning a bachelor party. He went into some details about the plan, mostly getting drunk, and said that my friends had planned something for me. The gist of it was basically that he planned a party and invited everyone but me and my closest female friends. I was so shocked at the lengths he had gone to coordinate this behind our backs, including picking people up from an airport that's 2 hours away, contacting dozens of our friends he had either met briefly or didn't know at all, and also finding my mom on Facebook to get someone to plan something for me. I didn't know how to respond. My fiance didn't know what to say either, and looked at me as if it was my decision to call this off or not. I said something along the lines of, "Oh my God, no, we don't want bachelor parties. I'm not interested in this." I felt very put on the spot, but also bad for clearly ruining weeks of planning. On one hand, it seems sweet that Tom went so out of his way to plan and coordinate this event, but on the other hand, it seems like a huge overstep to do it without any input from us. I also think he knows us well enough to know that if we were asked, we would say we aren't interested, and that's why it was planned in secret. If we hadn't heard something beforehand, it would have been a complete ambush right before our wedding. I can't explain how much panic I would have felt if Tom showed up unannounced on Thursday to take my fiance away on a secret bachelor party night. It would have ruined the entire night and probably the next day. Even if my friends had planned something for me, again, I'm pregnant. Whatever they had planned for me wasn't a wild night, whereas knowing Tom, his was. So am I the jerk here? My fiance agrees with me that the whole thing is ridiculous. But if I had said okay, I think he would have gone along with the plan just to be polite. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot, but it sounds like some people are flying in for this party. You can tell Tom that you and your friends will be joining the party and that anything not in good taste or predicated on drunken partying should be canceled. But out of respect for guests who are flying in, you hope you can all enjoy a nice evening together. That will teach him to go behind people's backs in the future while not causing people who spent money to fly in for this to have to cancel their plans for something that wasn't their fault. I'm sure they had no idea you guys didn't want these parties when Tom invited them. Comment 2. If I'm being honest, I suspect that your fiance really did want to go, but he was afraid of upsetting you. Your general tone gives the impression that you have a strong personality, and perhaps he's resigned himself to the idea that it's easier to agree with you. So with that said, not the idiot. You didn't say no out of malice or anything like that, but instead because you saw it as interfering with what was going on. If I'm right, then it was on your fiance to speak up for himself rather than looking to you for a decision. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. After the whole bachelor party fiasco, things were tense for a while. Tom was pretty upset that we shut down his plans, and it caused a bit of a rift between him and my fiance. They didn't talk much in the days leading up to the wedding, which was awkward since Tom was still coming as a guest. My fiance tried to smooth things over, but Tom was clearly hurt and felt unappreciated. The wedding day itself went off without a hitch. Thankfully, it was a beautiful ceremony, and having it in our backyard made it feel so personal and intimate. Everyone seemed to have a great time, and for a moment, it felt like all the stress leading up to it had been worth it. But the peace didn't last long. About a week after the wedding, my fiance got a call from his boss. Apparently, Tom had been talking to some mutual friends about how we handled the whole bachelor party situation, and word got back to his workplace. His boss was concerned that my fiancé wasn't a team player and questioned his commitment to the company. It was a ridiculous leap, but it put my fiancé in a tough spot. He had to spend the next few weeks proving himself all over again, working late nights and weekends to show he was dedicated. It was exhausting for both of us, especially with me being pregnant and needing his support at home. During this time, I started noticing some changes in my fiancé. He was more irritable and distant, and we were arguing more than usual. I chalked it up to the stress from work, but there was something else going on. One night, after another heated argument, he finally broke down and admitted that he was feeling trapped. He loved me and was excited about the baby, but the pressure from work and the fallout with Tom had him questioning everything. It was a gut punch, and I didn't know how to respond. We decided to take a weekend away to try and reconnect. We went to a small cabin a few hours away, hoping the change of scenery would help. It was nice to get away, but the underlying tension was still there. We had some good moments, but the conversations always seemed to circle back to the same issues. My fiancé was struggling with the idea of becoming a father and the responsibilities that came with it. He felt like he was losing himself and didn't know how to balance everything. When we got back, things didn't improve much. My fiancé's boss was still on his case, and Tom was still distant. I tried to be supportive, but I was dealing with my own anxieties about the baby and our future. One night, I overheard my fiancé on the phone with Tom. They were arguing, and my fiancé said something that shook me to my core. He told Tom that he wished he had gone to the bachelor party, that maybe it would have given him a chance to clear his head and figure things out. It felt like a betrayal, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage was in trouble. The next day, I confronted my fiancé about the conversation. He tried to downplay it, saying he was just venting and didn't mean it. But the damage was done. I felt like I couldn't trust him, and it was tearing us apart. We decided to go to couples therapy to try and work through our issues. It was a difficult decision, but we both knew we needed help. In therapy, we started to unpack some of the deeper issues that had been brewing beneath the surface. My fiancé opened up about his fears of becoming a father and his feelings of inadequacy. I shared my own fears and insecurities, and we began to understand each other better. But it wasn't a quick fix. The sessions were emotionally draining, and there were times when I wondered if we were making any progress at all. One of the most challenging moments came when our therapist asked us to talk about our childhoods and how they shaped our views on relationships. My fiancé revealed that his parents had a tumultuous marriage, filled with arguments and resentment. He had always feared that he would end up in a similar situation, and the stress from work and the fallout with Tom had triggered those old fears. It was a revelation that helped me understand his behavior, but it also made me realize how deep-seated his issues were. As for me, I had my own baggage to unpack. Growing up, my parents had a picture-perfect marriage, or so I thought. It wasn't until I was older that I learned about the sacrifices and compromises they made to keep things together. It made me question my own expectations and whether I was putting too much pressure on my fiancé to live up to an ideal that didn't really exist. Despite the progress we were making in therapy, the strain on our relationship was taking its toll. My fiancé's work situation wasn't improving, and the stress was affecting his health. He started having panic attacks and had to take a leave of absence. It was a wake-up call for both of us. We realized that we needed to prioritize our mental health and well-being, even if it meant making some tough decisions. One of those decisions was to cut ties with Tom. It was a painful choice, but we both agreed that his presence in our lives was causing more harm than good. My fiancé reached out to him and explained the situation. Tom was hurt, but he understood. It was a bittersweet ending to a friendship that had once been so important. As we navigated these challenges, we also had to prepare for the arrival of our baby. It was a daunting task, but it gave us something positive to focus on. We started attending parenting classes and setting up the nursery, trying to create a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. In the end, the past month has been pretty tough of emotions and challenges. We've had to confront some harsh realities and make difficult choices. But through it all, we've learned a lot about ourselves and each other. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're committed to working through our issues and building a stronger foundation for our family. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my father-in-law to take his locked toolbox back? My wife's parents live far away but often come to visit. My father-in-law is not a handyman, but he likes to do small house projects for my wife when he visits. In the past, when he visits, he has gotten frustrated by not being able to find my tools like screwdrivers and vice grips because they were not put back away properly after I used them. This is a very legitimate complaint, as I sometimes get very frustrated by myself as well. I have a bit of attentiveness, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and I often lose tools immediately when I put them down after or even during a project. It's something I try to work on, but it's a constant struggle for me. A few weeks back, I noticed a new toolbox in our basement with a combination lock on it. At first, my wife told me it was hers, but later I learned that my father-in-law had gotten some secondhand tools and sent them to my house so he can work on my wife's projects. The lock is there specifically to prevent me from opening the toolbox and using the tools. My wife knows the code, or at least she did at one point. She says that she has forgotten it, and I believe her on that point. There was never any point where anyone explained to me that he was sending tools and/or that he wanted them to be kept for his own use on projects. They just all decided to send this toolbox with a lock to keep me out. I should mention that my wife's parents really love their daughter more than anything in the world and are of the idea that she should make all the decisions and I should just do whatever she tells me. I don't really begrudge their view, but I think this provides some context here. My initial response was to joke about it, but I am really not comfortable with this. I appreciate his concerns and am comfortable saying that I simply won't use his tools, even if I can't find my own. But having a lock there solely to keep me out of a toolbox in my own home feels very disrespectful. I've expressed these feelings, but both my mother and father-in-law have told me to get over it, which I think is not an acceptable response. I am trying to avoid a confrontation and/or bad feelings, or to blow this out of proportion. I don't want him to feel unwelcome or that his handiwork isn't appreciated. But I feel that this lock has to go. Either it needs to be removed or the whole toolbox has to be shipped back to my father-in-law's house. So would I be the jerk to tell my father-in-law that they can't keep in my house a toolbox that is locked to specifically keep me out? To add, I just want to clarify/reiterate here. I have no desire or intention to use these tools. I'm certainly willing to commit to him that I won't use his tools. I tend to misplace my own things, but I can make a promise and keep my word to respect his property by not using the tools. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. As someone with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, who has similar issues, even with medication, I get it. I really do. That locked toolbox is a reminder of every time someone criticized you for losing something. And over the course of your life, that's probably a lot of criticism. But you need to let it go. Accept that your brain is wired differently and that misplacing things, while inordinately frustrating, I have definitely yelled that I hate my broken brain, is just normal for you. Accept that your father-in-law can't possibly understand why you leave your tools all over, so he's created a little safe space for his own. You don't need his tools, so just ignore it. Our brains are different. Sometimes in infuriating ways, but sometimes in neat ways. You're not lazy, crazy, or stupid. Comment 2. You would be the jerk. YWBTA. My husband had this same issue with his tools. I tried a number of solutions, but nothing worked. I got a toolbox and put only pink-handled tools in there so everyone knew they were mine. Then I put a lock on the box. My husband was offended, but ultimately understood that it drove me nuts to not be able to find a damn hammer when I needed one. He also acknowledged that my plan works because he does, in fact, not know where any of his tools are. It's a small thing that ultimately makes sense. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So a lot has happened since I last posted. 3 days ago, my father-in-law showed up unannounced. He had a stern look on his face and carried a small bag. I was in the middle of fixing a leaky faucet, using my own tools, when he walked in. He didn't say much at first, just watched me work. It was awkward, to say the least. After a few minutes, he finally spoke up and asked if we could talk. I put down my wrench and followed him to the living room. He pulled out a small envelope from his bag and handed it to me. Inside was a letter written in his neat handwriting. It was an apology. He admitted that locking the toolbox was a mistake, and that he hadn't considered how it would make me feel. He explained that he was just trying to help his daughter and didn't mean to disrespect me. He also mentioned that he had brought the combination to the lock and was willing to remove it if I wanted. I was taken aback. I didn't expect him to apologize, let alone offer to remove the lock. I told him I appreciated the gesture but needed some time to think about it. He nodded and left the combination on the coffee table before heading upstairs to talk to my wife. Later that evening, my wife and I had a long conversation. She admitted that she had felt caught in the middle and didn't know how to handle the situation. She apologized for not being more supportive and promised to work on better communication. We decided to leave the toolbox unlocked for now and see how things went. The next day, my father-in-law and I worked on a project together. It was a simple task, fixing a broken fence in the backyard. We used both his tools and mine, and for the first time, it felt like we were working as a team. We talked about various things, from sports to family, and it was surprisingly pleasant. By the end of the day, the fence was fixed, and we had a newfound respect for each other. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. That evening, my wife received a phone call from her mother. Apparently, my father-in-law had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's a few months ago. He hadn't told anyone because he didn't want to worry the family. The locked toolbox was his way of trying to maintain some control over his life and his ability to help around the house. This revelation hit us hard. It explained a lot of his recent behavior and made me feel guilty for being so upset about the toolbox. My wife was devastated, and we spent the night talking about how we could support her father moving forward. The next day, we sat down with my father-in-law and had an honest conversation. He admitted that he was scared and didn't know how to cope with the diagnosis. We assured him that we were there for him and would support him in any way we could. We also decided to keep the toolbox unlocked, but agreed that he could have a designated space for his tools, where he could organize them as he liked. In the days that followed, we started making small changes around the house to accommodate his needs. We labeled drawers and cabinets, created a schedule for household tasks, and made sure he felt included in family decisions. It wasn't easy, but it brought us closer together as a family. As for my own struggles with ADHD, I realized that I needed to be more proactive in managing my symptoms. I started using a tool organizer and set reminders on my phone to put things back in their place. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it helped reduce the frustration of losing tools. Reflecting on everything, I realized that the locked toolbox was just a symptom of a larger issue. It forced us to confront our communication problems and brought to light my father-in-law's health struggles. While the situation was far from ideal, it ultimately led to a deeper understanding and stronger bond within our family. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for getting my niece suspended because of a silly song? So I, 32-year-old male, occasionally pick up my niece Sophie, 10-year-old female, from school when my sister, 38-year-old female, has to work late. This happens probably once a week and sometimes twice a week when my sister has a busy period in her work. I'm absolutely fine with picking up my niece as I love her very much. Since Sophie was little, she and I would try to annoy my sister, her mom, by singing popular songs in silly ways. It was just a fun little thing Sophie and I would do. We would basically change all the words in a song to something like meow. So for example, if the song, "Hey Now, You're an All-Star" came on, we would just say meow, 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 meow in the same rhythm as the song. Sophie would find this hilarious, and we had a great laugh doing so. Even my sister would find it funny, since Sophie has such an infectious, happy laugh. We've done this for years, to the point that when I pick her up from school, we call it karaoke time, and I have a playlist of Sophie's favorite songs. So to spice things up, about a month or two ago, I changed from the meows and went, "Hey Sophie, I'm a robot now." And she was confused, and I just changed it to beep boop. So the same song would be beep boop, beep beep, beep boop. And she laughed so hard, and we sang songs saying beep boop the whole way home. Well, last week when I picked Sophie up, I decided to change things again, and I went, "Hey Sophie, I'm a doorbell now." And she again looked at me confused, and I started singing Ding Dong, and I never heard her laugh so much in my life. She could barely keep the song going because she just kept laughing. It's always so lovely to hear her laugh so hard. I dropped her off at home with my sister, and she was singing the songs constantly, going, "Ding dong, ding, ding, ding dong." And my sister laughed and said, "Thank you for that. She's going to be doing this all night now." I typically say, "Sorry, not sorry." and head off. Well, yesterday my sister phoned me up angrily saying she got a call from school telling her to pick Sophie up from school as she has been suspended for the rest of the week. This is a shock as Sophie is such a lovely, innocent, sweet-natured girl who would never say or do anything bad. But basically, Sophie has decided to do this fun little thing we did into school, but she changed ding-dong to ching-chong. Sophie is completely oblivious to the offensive nature of ching-chong, and to make things worse, her teacher is half Chinese and has taken great offense to Sophie's song. Sophie is very upset as she doesn't understand why she was told off. My sister is furious with me because she thinks I taught her that, and I just feel awful about the whole thing in general. To add, people keep calling me Sophie's aunt. I'm a guy, just FYI LOL. I put male 32. Now for an update. My sister has explained to Sophie about the issues. Sophie feels very bad about it. The suspension isn't going on Sophie's files as my sister had a chat with the principal and they all agree that it was just a very unfortunate accident. The suspension has been revoked. My sister has apologized to me for being angry, and I apologized to her too. The teacher was very cold towards my sister when she went into the principal's office, and my sister apologized profusely about it and explained the whole car karaoke thing with me, etc. Interestingly, the teacher tried to tell my sister that time with her uncle may not be good, and my sister disclosed that I'm a loving gay uncle that had no intention of this happening, to which apparently the teacher said, "Ah, he's gay. No wonder there's an issue," which has caused a very interesting turn in events that I didn't see coming. The teacher is now on absence. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you didn't get her to sing an offensive song. I think what you do with her is adorable. You're not psychic. How could you predict she would turn ding-dong to ching-chong? Someone needs to push back on the school because there's no way she knew it was bad. Side note, when I was little, like 8 or 9, I heard the phrase, "Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am." I had no idea what it meant, but it involved the words, "thank you," and I was taught manners. So I started saying it randomly to women. I did learn pretty quickly it wasn't okay to say. To me, you're not the idiot. Comment 2. Did the teacher even talk to your niece about what she thinks she said or anything? Or did she just immediately go off on a child and got her suspended instead of acting like an adult? The teacher should be at fault here, in my opinion. Getting angry at a 10-year-old she probably misunderstood and didn't even explain anything to or speak to before getting her suspended. You, your sister, and your niece need to go to the school and demand to speak to the principal and the teacher. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since the last post. So after the whole incident with Sophie at school, things have been a bit tense. My sister and I had a long talk about how to handle things moving forward. We decided to keep the car karaoke, but to be more mindful of the words we use. Sophie was really upset about the whole thing, and it took a while for her to understand why what she did was wrong. We had a few heart-to-heart conversations, and she seems to be getting it now. A couple of weeks ago, something unexpected happened. I was picking Sophie up from school, and she seemed a bit down. I asked her what was wrong, and she hesitated before telling me that some kids at school were making fun of her for the suspension incident. They were calling her names and saying she was discriminatory. It broke my heart to see her so upset. I tried to cheer her up with our usual karaoke, but it wasn't the same. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt responsible for what happened and wanted to make it right. I decided to talk to my sister about it, and we agreed that I should go to the school and speak with the principal. I wanted to explain my side of the story and see if there was anything we could do to help Sophie. When I met with the principal, I explained how the whole thing started as a fun game between Sophie and me. I also mentioned the teacher's comment about me being gay and how it seemed to have influenced her reaction. The principal was very understanding and assured me that they would address the bullying issue. They also said they would look into the teacher's behavior and take appropriate action. A few days later, the principal called me to let me know that they had spoken to the teacher and that she had decided to take a leave of absence. They also arranged for a counselor to talk to Sophie and help her deal with the bullying. I felt a bit better knowing that the school was taking steps to support her. In the meantime, my sister and I decided to have a family meeting to discuss everything that had happened. We wanted to make sure that Sophie knew we were there for her and that she could talk to us about anything. During the meeting, my sister shared some stories from her childhood about how she had faced similar situations and how she had dealt with them. It was a really emotional moment, and I think it helped Sophie feel less alone. As we were talking, my sister mentioned something that caught me off guard. She said that when we were kids, our parents had always been very strict and that she had often felt like she couldn't express herself. She said that she had always admired how I had been able to be myself, even when it wasn't easy. It was a really touching moment, and it made me realize how much we had both grown over the years. After the meeting, things started to get better. Sophie seemed more relaxed, and the bullying at school started to die down. She even made a new friend, a girl named Emily, who had also been bullied in the past. They bonded over their shared experiences and have become really close. One day while I was picking Sophie up from school, she asked me if we could go to the park instead of doing our usual karaoke. I agreed, and we spent the afternoon playing on the swings and talking. She told me about Emily and how much she appreciated having someone who understood what she was going through. It was a really nice moment, and I felt like we were starting to move past the whole incident. But before I tell you more about that, there's something else I need to share. A few days ago, my sister got a call from the school. Apparently, the teacher who had taken a leave of absence had decided to resign. The principal told my sister that they had conducted an investigation and found that the teacher had a history of making inappropriate comments. They assured us that they were taking steps to ensure that something like this wouldn't happen again. This news brought a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was relieved that the teacher was no longer at the school and that Sophie wouldn't have to deal with her anymore. On the other hand, it made me realize how much impact our actions can have on others, even when we don't mean to cause harm. As we move forward, my sister and I have decided to be more open with each other and with Sophie. We've started having regular family meetings to talk about our feelings and to make sure that we're all on the same page. It's been a really positive change, and I feel like we're all closer because of it. So that's where things stand right now. It's been a challenging few weeks, but I think we've all learned a lot from the experience. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.